So I'm very pleased to be here. I'm sorry for being a little bit late. It's a long day. It's true for you too, of course. And when I'm talking, I'm supposed to be the first talker because I'm working on human evolution. And my interest is really about how technologies are changing humanity. And nowadays, really, we are in a very, very new era, but nobody is able to understand what's going on. By the way, it's interesting because except in prehistory, in my field, sociologists, philosophers don't trust very much technologies, and they don't understand very much how technologies are able to change societies, of course, but also the way we are thinking about the world, and how even social classes and workmen and everything around us is supposed to change very quickly. First, what is evolution? Evolution is a big set of theories, scientific theories, about how the world is changing. The first reason we're talking about volcano, about ocean currents and everything, natural causes are very efficient, but we cannot speak about evolution. You know the movie Jurassic Park. You are a big T-Rex, and a big rock is coming from the sky and hit the Earth. That's not evolution. This kind of event is true, is changing the history of life. But that's not evolution. Why? Because there is no adaptation. You are in the right place or not. You're struck by the rock or not. So natural catastrophes are changing the world, but maybe evolution, if you want, but they are not making what is adaptations, how species are able to change and to be better adapted. The second real reason is co-evolution. Actually, we are evolving along with other species, especially microorganisms, viruses, bacteria, and everything. And even today, it's true. For you, it seems it's very obvious, but that's not that obvious. Medicine, with a lot of progress, thought that progress, research, new therapies were able to put humanities outside of the natural laws of natural selection and evolutions, which is not true. Everybody here, for everybody in this room, about 80% of the cells in your body don't belong to you. We call that the microbiota. And we are co-evolving with all these viruses, bacteria, and it's very important for our biology and even for our cognitive capabilities. So it's still co-evolving. The way our ancestors were making choice about food, about diet, there is a big inheritance above the genes. We call that the epigenetics. And the way your ancestors were eating food, or this type of food or not, is part of your inheritance and your biology. And the way you're eating nowadays is going to be partly transmitted to your kids and after that. So evolution, even in our big cities, even in very technical civilizations, is still going on. One example about milk. As you know, it's really hard for adult people to digest milk. And back 6,000 years ago, a few group of people tried a new experience to live along with cattle, to eat meat, of course, blood, and especially milk. But when we are adult, and even a young infant, we cannot digest milk. We need special genes to digest lactose, and we call that lactase. And it was a real cultural selection, meaning that all the very young kids born without these genes died. That's why when you watch a movie, it's really interesting. When you watch a movie American movie or or movie from Sweden, like Millenniums, for example. It's really interesting because you can't see people drinking a glass of milk before going to the bed. Never you'll see that for French or Italian or Spanish people, because we don't have the genes in Southern Europe to digest milk, but people living in the north have more genes able to digest genes. Even today, big differences between people in Africa, Asia, Europe, Northern Europe, Southern Europe, were still very different in front of this kind of changes. Now, the second reason why we are changing very quickly, that's the second coevolution. Human species are very, very, very plastic. Plastic means we can change very quickly in terms of morphology. Morphology is shape and size, shape and size. Physiology, the way your body is working, and also about cognitive capabilities. About 2 million years ago, the real first human, which name was Homo erectus, they made a big invention, fire. And fire means cooking. Cooking means we're able to cook vegetables, meat of course, but especially vegetables. We can detoxify vegetables. Vegetables and food is tender. We don't have to chew very hard. And it's a kind of pre-digestion, meaning that when you eat potatoes, tubercles, or whatever you want, bubbles and roots, if you cook them, you don't have to chew very hard, and then you get very much energy, and it's good for the brain. It was 2 billion years ago in Africa, and what we call nowadays a general innovation, technical innovations, can change all the society and even biology. After that, it was a very quick evolution, rapid evolution, in terms of body size, brain size, and a big consequence in terms of ecology and adaptations. Humans were the first monkeys or ape able to go outside Africa and to be adapted to other kind of ecosystems or environments. Only us. We are the only species nowadays we can meet everywhere in the world. Near the sea, in the top of the mountains, deserts, islands, whatever you want. It's very special. That's because we are very plastic. It's coming from natural selection, and because we are also very technical species. We are able to transform the environments around us. It was always true. Let's go back to today. According to my age, I belong to the baby boomers generation. Very close, the upper side anyway. But anyway, I'm a baby boomer. Can you imagine 50 years ago our evolution? Owing to better education, better food, better environments, social progress, better conditions for working, better housing. Everything altogether has changed my generation. And in one generation, we were able to get 25 years of more life expectancy. We were able to gain a bigger size, better conditions. There is a psychologist, which name is James Flynn from America. And according to his studies about IQ, we went through an incredible gain in terms of IQ in just 40 years. It's just amazing. It never happened before. When you change the society with new technologies, at this time it was TV, radio, cars, airplanes, better energy, power, complex new materials, plastic, for example, and everything, and new politics. Everything is changing very quickly. Now, I'm just coming back from another lecture. I'm sorry, that's why I'm late. It was about the near future. How is going to be our evolutions in what we call the Darwinian ecological system. If you pay attention, there is a lot of very big meetings now around the world, especially in California and even in Japan and China, South Korea, of course, the countries of, for California, the GAFA, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, and in China, because it's really crazy. I'm very surprised because when we talk about all these changes, especially in France, everybody is looking to California, Google, Apple, Facebook, of course, the story about Cambridge Analytica, but they forget all the time what's going on in China. And China is very powerful, is very ahead with Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, GDCom, Xiaomi, and everything. These countries are very changing quickly. Then, the question is, why are we in what we're calling the digital Darwinian world? Why it is Darwinian? About Darwin, of course. Up to my generations, up to the end of the 20th century, progress, politics, economics was a politics of demand. It was some general needs for the society in terms of education, transportation, whatever you want, medicine, better social laws, whatever you want. So it was some differences between the left and the right wings, but in general, it was a general consensus about about the goal, how we have to change. We call that a Lamarckian work from Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck, a big scientist, who said, when the environment is changing, humans are able, or species, even species, to find solutions to cope with the new conditions, the new environments. Great, we still have to go on like that. There is a lot of needs in our societies. But the big change was in 2007. Why? In 2007, we moved in a new era of human evolutions for 3 reasons. First, a big guy who is dead now, going by the name of Steve Jobs, was on the scene and issued an iPhone. And he said, I'm going to change the world. But he didn't know about the changes going on. Because this kind of thing, like big computers, then small computers, now about smartphones, we are talking about universal machines. That's quite different. I don't know if you know the names of these people who are Andrew McAfee and Eric Bryn Jefferson. These 2 guys are working at the MIT, and they are the authors of a very good bestseller, which is The Second Age of the Machine. Starting 2 centuries ago, up to the end of the 20th century, we were in the first age of the machine, meaning that we built machines for a very precise purpose. We need to go faster on the road, it's a car. It's a truck, it's a bus, train, okay, we built better trains, airplanes, everything, drones, whatever you want. So up to now, it was a general pattern of we try to understand what do we need, what we have to improve, and then we find the solutions. And we have machines who are built especially for that, for this kind of use, with some changes. This is quite different. Because when you have that in your pocket, if you use it, you can do things that never people were thinking about it. And I'm going to give you an example. Twitter. 10 years ago, Mr. Jack Dorsey met his friends, so they met a hackathon, and they decided to create an app which is, okay, I'd like to send a very short message, 140 characters, to my friends. Frankly, just between us, Do you think really that to have this kind of app, just to send a few nice messages to your friends, is something which is very, very deeply encouraged in the future of humanity? Does it correspond to a very real need? Not at all. So what is the new world? It's very easy for people like you to meet, to make a hackathon, to create an application, an app, and you can disrupt a full market. The name is Uberization. When 10 years ago, a little bit more, Mr. Kanavik was in Paris waiting for a taxi. He said, the service is not very good. I'm going to create an app which is Uber. Then, nowadays, which is quite different from the first age of the machine, people like you have in their pocket the possibility to create something with quite a few money, and if it works, it can change the world. Twitter is really amazing, because imagine, okay, it doesn't work. That's not a big deal. You were with your friend, with your friends, you had a good time, the app is not selected, well, a little bit sad, but that's not a big deal. And maybe this app, with some transformations, will be useful for something else. We call that, in my field, exaptation, which means an adaptation in what field, and you create something new starting from that. Do you think 1 second that Jack Dorsey and his friends were thinking about the Arabian Springs? During these revolutions, people were able to send informations. We need to meet, we need to develop a politics together to fight against these governments. Of course, these people in California didn't think 1 second that Twitter will be used to make a revolution. About the city, about finance, there is new softwares with AI now able to scrutinize people's opinions about values, about shares, about companies and results. And these algorithms are able to make predictions. One thing was that the big financial crisis in 2008 is coming from that. Can you imagine 1 second that Jack Dorsey and his friends 10 years ago thought it would be possible to have fake news? And you know that fake news are a real danger for democracy. Mr. Trump is using that. I call that Trumpery in French. But anyway, it's just like that. And that's a Darwinian world. Why is it Darwinian? Darwin is quite different from the way we are used to think about innovation. In the world, especially my generation, we were in the world where we find solutions to very clear and notified problems. So the environment is changing, the market is changing, the society is changing, we find solutions. In this world coming on, and already you are deeply in it, we are in a world where solutions are looking for problems. We are in a world where solutions are looking for problems. And it's a way of thinking quite different. And the digital revolutions is doing that. Meaning also that, for the very first time, we can densify very incredibly are the relationships in the world. So this Darwinian world is really interesting because everybody, especially politicians, are very in bad shape in order to understand what's going on. And you can create a business with quite a few things. Moreover, according to Mr. Jeremy Rifkin wrote a book which is the marginal zero cost. What it means. If you create an app, it doesn't work, it's bad. It's too bad. Now it's working. For the very first time in humanity and in the world, you can duplicate something through digital patterns or products, and these copies are very uniform, same quality, and you can do that, you can multiply that without adding any cost, or just a few costs. The zero marginal cost means that if something is working on the networks, in the web, if the apps is selected, you can develop your business very quickly, and as soon as you go above a threshold, you develop your business and you earn a lot of money with quite a few investment. That's why Apple, Facebook, and everything, these people are so powerful in terms of capitalizations, because it's quite different from core factories, for example. With a few money, you can start a job. Then, if it's working, you occupy all the new market you have created. So we are co-creating new markets. That's very new. It's very unexpected. Now, how it is changing our society. I go back to Mr. McAfee and Mr. Bryn-Jefferson. Starting 30 years ago, it was 4 curves going together. The curve describing the average of incomes of North American families, the money earned by people. The second curve is about employment creations, more jobs. The third one is GDP. And the fourth one is about productivity. The 4 curves were all together starting back 60 years ago until the beginning of the 80s, mid-80s. After 1981-82, the 4 curves are spreading away. And I like very much my American friends. When there is a big problem, they use a French term, le grand découplage, which means we're going to have big problems. And we are going to have big problems already. Why? At this time, we didn't understand what's going on. And in all the modern societies, when lower classes people are making studies, in general, their kids are aiming to kind of technical jobs, engineers, nursery, and everything, technical jobs. That's the general rule. But when a new technology is coming on, these technologies is really hitting hard these new middle classes. And I'm talking about that. Because 35 years ago, who could afford to buy a microcomputer? It was in companies, universities, big institutions, and people having enough money. So we didn't see the impact of microcomputing, about jobs, about incomes, and changes in society. And 30 years ago, that's why we are experiencing now. Actually, it was a very low going, but very efficient destructions of lower middle classes. That's why in the USA, for example, there is an election for Mr. Trump, and we call that in French popularism. Already we have a lot of people who don't trust anymore the future because the changes are too quick. And then, in France also, with Mr. Macron, in Brexit, in England, we are not anymore on a logic between left side or right side about politics. We are in a new logic, which is some people trust this coming world, meaning that we are actor of this world. It's not going to be very easy, but we think we are part of the trip and we are contributors of the trip. And some people, almost half of the populations, don't trust anymore the future. So it took 30 years just to figure it out. Now, with that, it was so brutal. Even Mr. Steve Jobs didn't believe what was going on. Do you remember maybe? It was first skeptical about the iPhone, but it was a leader after that. But then, during 1 year, he refused to house apps coming from other companies than Apple. He didn't believe very much about it. And in fact, it took almost 5 to 6 years to understand what was going on. So the smartphones, it's 2007, and we start to speak about Uberization 6 years or 7 years later. Because there is a new ecology now, and the third reason why we have big changes. The first one is the smartphone. The second one, starting from 2007, the majority of human populations are living in cities for the very first time. The third one is AI. As you know, about machine learning and deep learning, when during a challenge, a meeting, it was for the very first time using the technologies of artificial neuron technologies, image recognitions was making a real advance about that. So the three together already are making a big impact nowadays. So for sure, take a look of this world. In 5 years from now, this world is going to be quite different and worldwide. And even politicians, a lot of people don't understand what's going on. But frankly, nobody knows where we are going on, because it's changing so quickly. And about AI, to finish, I'm very surprised. A lot of people are thinking, oh, do you believe that robots are going to take over humans? That's so stupid. Robots are just a small part of AI. That's the first thing. AI is already everywhere, in our pocket, and as soon as we go on the web. The second one, I can read recently, oh, there is a modern AI, which is machine learning and deep learning. It's stupid. Starting 60 years ago, already the two main currents for AI were symbolic approach, which is how our brain is working on the left side, logical, mathematical models. We call that classical AI, but it's still improving. And then we have what we call machine learning and modern AI, which is not modern, but there is an explosion according to three things: the law of Moore, especially new chips, you know, the chips from NVIDIA, but graphics chips and tensor chips, which are going to be very powerful already. Then big data, and of course, algorithms. And you know what? I was talking to you about the digital Darwinian world, but already machines are Darwinians. Because what is exploding right now is bio-inspired, meaning that 60 years ago, the first researchers were using artificial neural networks, which are not chips, of course, but just mathematical functions. But then we are talking now about Darwinian algorithms. We're talking about Darwinian artificial life, because these machines are able to learn by themselves, by first things. They can create new things. They can create some arts, of course. And in many cases, we don't know what's going on in the machine. We call that the black box. And it's really funny because 60 years ago, studies in psychology, what we call behaviorism, it was we sent stimulus, we have response, but inside we don't know what's going on. It was the black box. It was no knowledge about what's going on in the brain. And now machines are going to become cognitive machines. We start to learn what's going on inside, what they can create, and one other thing is ecology. As you know, IoT, Internet of Things, when you have machines or whatever you want, intelligence or clever engines able to connect together, nobody is able to tell you what's going on. That's ecology. When you put something new, a species or a new plant or whatever you want, or bacteria in an ecosystem, you can be sure there will be some sentience, but nobody is able to know. So, to finish, and I'm very pleased to be here. I'm sorry for being so late once again. You are very sharp people in new technologies. You're great people, smart people. But I tell you one thing, and thank you to the organizer to invite someone like me. We need really to know about neurosciences. We need to know about Darwin. We need to know about anthropology, and we need to know about what is ecology, because it will be impossible to cope with this new world. So we are the actors of these changes. We are using this technology. We are going to change a lot of things, especially in our family, relationships, work, and everything. But it's still evolutions. So don't think these evolutions were the top of great, smart people about technologies, and we don't care about nature, neurosciences, and Darwin, and evolutions. If you think that way, sooner or less, you're going to have a hard time. But if you work together in this new system, we will be able to build a new era of humanity. Thank you.